Okay, this is our second class for PCR 813, Peace and Security in a Global Context. In our first class, we were trying to understand peace, trying to conceptualize peace, defining peace. And in that class, we understood that we have different types of peace. We have negative and positive peace, and went a long way in trying to elaborate to understand what negative peace is and what positive peace is. Now, today in this class, we're going to go to the next topic on our course outline, which will be human security. What is human security? We would like to look at it, the conceptualization, what used to be the case a couple of years ago, and then what is currently subsisting in the international environment as at now. Now, prior to 1994, human security issues were largely dominated by state security. That's what we'll probably call now political security. And this was the kind of security that was largely based on the security of the state. It was largely functional within the paradigm of military establishments. In other words, before 1994, nations perceived security from the viewpoint of sovereignty, territorial integrity, so on and so forth. Sovereignty in the sense that if their state, the sovereignty of their state is threatened, then they perceive it as a threat to security. So essentially, nations look at protecting their sovereignty as a primary platform on which security must rest, must be understood, must be engaged with, and also must be developed. So they also looked at, apart from state sovereignty, they looked at other things that related with the state that was largely hinged on the state. And this has functioned for a very long time as being the primary paradigm on which security is understood. But from 1994, a new paradigm was introduced by the UNDP, the United Nations Development Program. And this paradigm is very, very profound in the sense that it completely shifts the way that we look at security, the way we perceive security, the way we analyze security. Instead of using the state as the central platform on which to understand, analyze, perceive, and engage with security, this paradigm completely moved from the state and made the human being the central focus of security. This is actually commonsensical if you look at it. Prior to 1994, nations have been looking at protecting their boundary, protecting their integrity, protecting their diplomatic stability, so on and so forth, as being the central core on which security must be factored, understood, related with, and engaged. However, when you look at the new paradigm that UNDP introduced post-1994, you discover that whatever happens at the state level essentially affects human beings. And the state is not just a concept that hangs in space, but rather the state is a concept that is anchored on human beings. In fact, human beings represent the state in essence. So why not model and factor security on the basis of human beings? So that was what happened post-1994. There was a shift from state-centered security to human-centered security. And understanding security from the human point of view, presented before academics, non-governmental organizations, and all forms of stakeholders that are engaged in security, the opportunity to begin to look deeper into the human factor. And when we look into the human factor, we come up with, about four major principles on which human security is centered. Number one, human security is people-centered. That's the first principle. That's the first fundamental principle of human security. Then the second fundamental principle is the multidimensional nature of human security. Human security is multidimensional. It's not just perceived from one dimension. There's a multidimensional perspective to human security. Then the third pillar of human security is the interconnected nature of human security. That is as distinct from state-centered security, which we have shifted from post-1994. Now, the fourth principle on which human security is hinged upon is the prevention-focused empowerment. What we call prevention-focused empowerment. That is the fourth pillar on which human security is centered. And let's look at these four pillars and try to understand them in relation to human security. Of course, security is the capacity to be safe, the capacity to maintain your integrity, maintain your boundaries, maintain your the key issues that give you the self-worth of being a human being. So that's essentially what security represents. But then, now that we have shifted from a state-centered security paradigm to a human-centered security paradigm, we need to look at these four principles, these four pillars on which human security is built on. Human-centered. Let's look at human-centered. Human-centered. Why is human security human-centered? Because the human being is the primary core of the state. Without the human being, there cannot be a state. So how can you talk about the security of a state if the human beings within that state are not secure? They are not secured. If they are not secured, then the point of a secured state is completely lost. So this new paradigm has this particular principle that is number one, people-centered. This approach is very critical. It's very, very critical. That means in whatever policy that a state wants to create in order to enforce its national security strategy, that national security strategy must be people-centered. It must begin to look at every form of security from the viewpoint of the people, rather than from the viewpoint of the interest of state. So whatever comes to play, the key question that must be asked is that who does this security paradigm profit? Does it profit the state, or does it profit the people? So it has to be people-centered. This is a principle that is the benchmark for all forms of security moving forward now post-1994. Is it people-oriented? If it is people-oriented in every form of security policy that we're trying to engage with, if it is people-focused and people-oriented, then we have been able to meet the first benchmark, the first pass point, for the new paradigm of human security. Then we move to the second pillar. The second pillar is the multidisciplinarity of human security. This new paradigm of security, which we are dealing with now, uses multidimensionality as one of its key, fundamental pillars that is necessary for it to be actualized. Now, what are these multidimensional issues that are involved in human security that we must deal with? Now, number one is economic security. Human security has under it several dimensions, and those dimensions, I'm going to list them. Number one, economic security. The second dimension is food security. And we have a third dimension, which is health security. The fourth dimension is environmental security. The fifth dimension is personal security. Then the sixth is community security. Then we move on to political security. Now we realize that under this multidimensionality, we have all these dimensions that make up human security. So when we are dealing with human security, we must be conscious that apart from it being human-centered, it also takes into cognizance several dimensions. Number one, it has to be human-centered, and then number two, it has to take into cognizance several dimensions. Now let's begin to look at each of these dimensions one by one and explain and then also understand them.